My name is Elena again with State Voices. I am joined by Alicia. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Alicia Guerreri, she, her pronouns, National Organizing Manager with the League of Women Voters US.
Great. And Janine, if you want to introduce yourself or if you want to wait until we get to the breakout section.
I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Janine Abrams-McLean. I'm the Vice President at Fair Count. Very happy to be here today.
Great. So we are here at part 5 for Redistricting Advocacy. And quickly, we're going to talk through why advocacy is important during redistricting, how to deliver our strong public testimony, which I think when we did that beginning poll, it was kind of split 50-50 on how folks were feeling about public testimony. We're going to talk about ways to increase accessibility and transparency in the process, and really how transparency and advocacy are connected. So first things, why it matters. Advocacy during redistricting can really give communities a voice and access into the political process. For many communities, they have not engaged in redistricting, and so this is a great opportunity for them to really start to have a conversation with elected officials or commissioners about their districts. Through advocacy, there may be better maps created that represent all communities, especially if there are a number of community of interest maps created. And then finally, it allows for community oversight in the process to build a record that communities turned out, they, supported maps, opposed maps, and just better transparency in the process. Skipping that. Engagement strategies. So these are just a few things to be thinking about as you start to plan your advocacy work. Your community should definitely get involved. Again, I think we've talked about this a lot, but public hearings can be a great place for that to happen, as well as community events or any other education opportunities. You'll want to research for your advocacy, research the timelines, rules, and process in your state or local area, what Suzanne and Eric were just talking about, making sure that you have that information. Being able to connect with civil rights experts in your area to either draft maps with a demographer or possibly talk with a litigator if you think that there is going to be pushback for the maps that are being proposed. And then finally, just being able to monitor the process, giving feedback on maps, if they meet your coalition's goals, how they could be strengthened, and just participating. So really quickly, I think everyone kind of has been operating in this virtual space for a while, but things to be thinking about as we continue probably in the virtual world. Virtual hearings are really effective. A great way to bring in community members. For that, we want to make sure that community members know where to go online, what platform is being used, and have all of their talking points for testimony prepared ahead of time. Written testimony is also helpful. The virtual public testimony that we just talked about. If your state does not offer virtual public testimony options, another suggestion is to maybe have like an unofficial record where community members can still participate in the process, give their feedback on maps, or share about their community and get involved if there's not an option at the state level. Another fun thing to think about for virtual testimony is creating like a watch party with your coalition so that you're hearing, you're at a hearing, but you're virtually connected and you can kind of react to the redistricting hearing as it's going on and share space and build community that way. Other things to think about is driving calls for advocacy to legislative or commission committees. These could be things like calls for better transparency, calls for supporting a map, and having a unified message there. You can also mobilize your community to turn out to these events and turn out to these advocacy actions through digital platforms like social media, but also texting, calling, emails, kind of using everything to just make sure that folks are getting the information. Or you could go the old school route and do like LTEs, op-eds, and more local newspapers. And then this is just a slide to quickly remind folks that the process is different between the legislative and independent commission states. They have different decision makers and oftentimes different processes for how the maps move through the process. And so as you're thinking about your advocacy work, it'll be just really important to look at what kinds of decision makers are associated with your process and make sure that you have like a plan to target the effective decision makers. And now I'm going to turn it over to Alicia.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm going to talk about transparency and accountability rules in redistricting, which is always super fun because we know that, you know, from conflicts of interest to campaign finance violations, we have seen in cases our legislators sometimes can conduct their business unethically. So, which is why it's clear to us that we need real institutional measures to establish ethical rules that ensure our legislators and map drawers, commission members are serving the public good rather than their own interests. On this slide, there are a number of transparency issues, and I'm going to actually add in the chat a link to a report that if you wanted to dive deeper into these, but this really is how we give these types of transparency and accountability rules give members of the public and communities of interest an opportunity to participate in the redistricting process, and that helps ensure electoral maps are drawn in a fair and open manner. Again, you could read through these more deeply, but there are three that I just wanted to pull out and make sure everybody saw, which includes commissions should require a minimal number of meetings or public hearings throughout the state. They should require all draft maps and reports to be released on a publicly accessible website. And another one I wanted to highlight is requiring a reasonable public comment period for proposed maps. Again, what we've gone through is how important it is for community and people to be able to have a voice in this process. You could go to the next slide. Testifying is advocacy power. Again, as you saw, a key part of the transparency and accountability rules means that the public is part of the process, and testifying is really a crucial opportunity to exercise our voice and our power to ensure our communities are represented and protected. This is both building skills for you, your organization, and community. This also applies to any issue and can be taken into and practiced, for redistricting and beyond. It gets you and your organization on the record, which is also important, later down in the redistricting process when we are able to see who and how many people were able to comment, helps build coalitions and get media attention as well. Okay, good. So just a quick word on preparing your testimony. Want to make sure that everybody knows what it means. We'll be talking about both testifying and testimony. Testimony is defined as a declaration or statement given in evidence. So it's a written document that contains what will be said in the testifying process. And then finally wanted to just provide an example. I know the writing is quite small. I don't expect anybody to be able to read this, but this is an example of a letter of testimony that was submitted in Washington State. And if you were to read it, if somebody were to read this, they could see how it includes information about the writer, who they are, and what is at stake for them, and why they have the right voice to be talking on this. It includes an ask and has an example of what the writer is asking for, as well as reasons and facts that support their position. And I know we will be diving deeper into these components.
Sorry, I thought I skipped a slide. Great. So now talking about just preparing your testimony as part of the advocacy and ways to keep the process open and transparent. For your testimony, there's a few key parts. First, your introduction. So you'll want to introduce yourself, any organization that you're with, maybe the coalition or your community that you work with, being clear on your goals for the testimony and why you are there speaking today. You'll want to tell your story, either your story of self or your story of the community and why it's really important. Your testimony could call for a specific solution. Maybe that is supporting a proposed map or sharing your community of interest map. And then use notes if necessary. The testimony process for many states to speak in front of a commission or a committee is really short. Some states are 2 minutes, some states are up to 5 minutes, but you want to make sure to be really concise. And then after you do your introductions, you'll want to define what your community looks like, defining the uniqueness about your community, what is special about the community, all of the geographic and structural boundaries in your neighborhood, whether that is a park, an airport, like a library, city hall. I think all of those things came up during our mapping demo. But just making sure that that is brought up, and then through that being able to share and explain your community of interest map if you are bringing one.
And a quick word on, just like Elena said, you are typically given a very short amount of time, but there are some instances in which folks ask questions. So you do want to make sure that you are prepared to respond to opposing viewpoints and able to defend your position. Again, echoing previous points made about being very clear about the points that you're being asked and really being certain about what you want to come across. In the case that you are asked a question that you aren't sure the answer to, you can just say that you don't know, but assure them that you will get back to them with an answer to their question.
Great. And then just to wrap everything up and to tie it back to, I think, section 2 or section 3. Sorry, creating stories with the 3 C's. And so in your testimony, again, mentioning the culture, what people are part of the community, the concerns that you have that need attention from the government, and then any counts, data, demographic information that can be used in your testimony can also be really impactful. And now we're going to launch into our breakout. We'll start with a video on public testimony.
We will now hear a testimonial from Nicole Kindred regarding district maps for the Peopleton County School District.
Hi. I've lived here for a long time, and the county has changed. I know that it's changed because I volunteered to help make sure people were counted in the 2020 census. Plus, you can look around and see that there are way more people of color living here now. I'd even dare to say that people of color are probably now the majority in Peopleton County. Unfortunately, since I've been here, we've only had one school board member who was a person of color, one. And I bet it's because of the way the school district lines are drawn. Look, if we keep the same maps for the next decade, absolutely nothing is going to change. As a mother of 3 school-age children, I have concerns, and redrawing the lines will help us have a better chance of electing people that really represent us. So I'm asking the commission, I'm asking you to draw better districts for the diverse communities of Peopleton County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kindred.
Great. So I think Lauren is going to sort us into breakouts right now. We'll have a facilitator in each group to talk through the testimony example that we just provided. We have some questions that will be asked, and then we'll come back and do a quick debrief and give another version of the testimony.
We will now hear a testimonial from Nicole Kindred regarding district maps for the Peopleton County School District.
Thank you, Commissioner Franklin. Hi, my name is Nicole Kindred, and I've lived in Peopleton County for 15 years. I'm here today with a concerned group of parents, teachers, and neighbors who are invested in the success of the Peopleton County School District. And we all believe that the district lines need to be redrawn. In 2020, I was an active member of the Peopleton County Complete Count Committee, and I helped make sure that we had an accurate count in the 2020 census. Recently released census data showed that our county's population has increased by 23% since the 2010 census, and that most of that growth has been driven by increases in Black, Latinx, and Asian populations. In fact, based on those numbers, people of color now make up 63% of Peopleton County's population. Unfortunately, only one of our 5 school board seats is held by a person of color, only one. And keeping the district lines as they are currently drawn provides fewer opportunities for communities of color to elect candidates that reflect the needs of the community. As a mother of 3 school-age children, and as a friend of parents that live in both affluent and less affluent areas of the county, I know how important it is for everyone's voice to be equally heard. After talking to my diverse neighbors and friends all over the Peopleton County School District, I know our community's concerns and that we need elected officials that can understand and address those concerns. Therefore, I implore the commission to take the new population and demographic data into account when redrawing school district lines, so that all residents of Peopleton County can have the opportunity to elect school board members that truly represent them. Thank you.